I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Alan for agreeing to come and tell the story, and thank Ted for coming up kind of ambushed, just happening to be here, and agreeing to come up and share his story with everybody here as well. It's a little bit of a tough act to follow, but I'm going to try to continue on and share with you guys a little bit about what we know are contributing factors that lead to these errors. As you can see, and as I probably should say, my name is Stephen Ross. I'm an assistant professor of psychology here in IAS at UWT. And as Paula mentioned, my research focuses on evaluating how we can use psychological science to influence our understanding of decisions that are made in the criminal justice system. And primarily the research that I do focuses on eyewitness memory and how we can get more accurate information from witnesses to crimes and develop policies and procedures that will enhance the quality of the evidence that law enforcement can obtain during these investigations. There's a couple things I want to go over with you here, and I'm going to try to go quickly. As Jackie alluded to earlier, the most significant contribution to wrongful convictions are mistaken eyewitness identifications, and she mentioned that consistently it's been shown to be present about 75 to 80% of all proven innocent convictions. There's been a witness who's identified this person as the perpetrator of the crime. And I think what's interesting about this, too, is if we look especially at the DNA exonerations, over 80% of the DNA exonerations are crimes that involve sexual assault. So these aren't situations in which the witness is viewing somebody from a distance that's far away. This is a intimate interaction with the individual, a close interaction with the individual in which they're getting exposure to the person. But still, in 77% of these crimes, of these cases of wrongful conviction, the witness is wrong. What's interesting about this, though, is that this knowledge that eyewitness errors contribute to these miscarriages of justice is not new knowledge to us. We've known this for over 100 years now, that eyewitness errors occur and they contribute to these errors in the criminal justice and legal systems. Going back to Hugo Munsterberg's seminal work in 1908, where he described how this occurs. He describes witnesses making these errors and these errors leading to errors when it comes to trial. And Borchardt, Jackie alluded to this in her opening, did the first evaluation of cases of wrongful conviction in the United States and evaluated 65 cases that he could find back in 1932 and found still at that time the single greatest cause was a mistaken witness identifying that individual. And although it's not surprising that that's the problem, to me what's surprising is the fact that we're here 100 years later and we're still dealing with this problem. And in reality, it seems to me that the reason this happened isn't because we didn't know that the problem existed. It's because we didn't really know what to do about it. And it's only been in recent years that we've taken a proactive effort to try to investigate these issues, try to identify what are the contributing factors, why do these errors occur, and what can we do to try to minimize these errors from occurring in the future. And there's two reasons why why we could be making the effort now, why it's finally coming to a head. And part is DNA. DNA is now giving us definitive evidence that individuals are innocent, like Ted, like Alan and Larry. This definitive evidence where now we can't sweep it under the rug. We can't say, well, maybe they had something to do with it, we just don't have enough evidence. Now we have the definitive evidence that they didn't have anything to do with it. The other contributing factor is that, although we've known for about 100 years that this is a problem, it's only been really in the last 35 years or so that social scientists have aggressively begun to pursue this line of research and to look into it and really try to identify what factors are contributing to these errors. Because it's one thing to say we have a problem. It's something completely different to say why that problem exists and what we can do to fix it. And it's only been really in the last 35 years or so that we've been getting a large body of literature evaluating eyewitness memory, the factors that contribute to that, and what we can do to fix and prevent these issues or minimize the likelihood that these errors are going to occur in the future. And it's some of the work that we do right here on campus, that we do in my lab, which is a couple of doors down, where we're investigating these procedures. We're trying to develop new techniques that we can then pass off to law enforcement and say, here, this is a better mousetrap. This is what you can do. So what I want to spend some time with you here tonight is, rather than going into what a lot of these reforms are that we can do, I think it may be worthwhile to take a step back and look at a case and try to say, what do we know about witness memory? And where along the lines of this case could these errors have come up? Where did the snowball begin? Where did it start? And given that Alan's joining us here tonight, I want to take a closer look at his case. And I started to evaluate this case and go through the records that I was able to get my hands on and that Laura and Jackie were able to share with me on this. And there were a lot of issues in this case that could have potentially led to the error made by the eyewitness. But there's three specifically that I want to mention to you and discuss with you this evening. Jackie mentioned a little bit about the case. Alan already brought up the fact that the precipitating factor, really the only evidence against him was this mistaken eyewitness. And really what set the whole ball rolling against him was the composite that the witness created. A couple days after the crime occurred, the witness was contacted by the detectives, asked to come in and work with a sketch artist to create this sketch of the perpetrator of the crime. This set the ball rolling that led to his ultimate mistaken identification and wrongful conviction. The problem that we know now by doing this research and investigating witness memory is we know that composites typically aren't good. We aren't good at reconstructing faces of individuals that we see. We aren't good at reconstructing faces of individuals that we know very well, let alone somebody who's a complete stranger to us that we only see for a short period of time. So we now have a composite here that might not look anything like the perpetrator and likely doesn't look much like the perpetrator. However, it's used as an investigative tool that now is used to identify suspects. Alan's name came up because it was felt by people in the community that he looked similar to this composite. Now, another problem that exists, and more problematic for the witness identification, is that recent research has indicated that just the process of a victim or a witness creating a composite can actually alter their memory for the perpetrator of the crime. Because they start viewing this composite, and now they start misremembering, or their memory for the perpetrator now becomes a mixture of the event and this composite that's created. So now, Alan, who may look somewhat similar to the composite, well, now that victim's memory of the perpetrator now, unfortunately, looks more similar to Alan. All right, so now, even before Alan's name came up, the eyewitness memory is potentially becoming problematic. After that, after Alan's name comes up, he mentioned that they showed a photo layout or a photo montage to the victim of the crime. And this here is the photo montage that you can see. Alan, this is the photograph of Alan at the time that was used. I faded that out a little bit, but you can see how there are some similarities there between the composite and Alan. But she's shown this photo montage, doesn't identify anybody, doesn't identify Alan. Nobody's identified here. But rather than the investigator saying, okay, maybe we got the wrong guy, he's continued to be pursued as a suspect in this case. And a few weeks later, the victim is called by law enforcement to come down and told that, hey, we may have a suspect. We want you to come down, and we're going to show you a live lineup. And here's the live lineup here, and it's a little bit grainy, it's difficult to see, but this is Alan. What's important about this live lineup is that the only person who was the same in the photo montage and the live lineup was Alan. And we know by doing this research that multiple presentations of an individual increases the likelihood of a mistaken identification. Because now the witness views this lineup, and guess what? Alan looks familiar. Why? Maybe because the victim thinks it was the perpetrator, or maybe it's because she saw him 3 weeks earlier and she doesn't remember the source of that memory for him. So we know now that multiple presentations are a bad idea. You shouldn't do it. We actually know now that we liken eyewitness evidence, eyewitness memory, to being similar to trace evidence, like trace evidence, blood, fingerprints, any of that. You have one opportunity to collect it correctly. And if you screw it up and contaminate it, it's not reliable. Eyewitness evidence is very similar to that. You have one opportunity to do it right, and if you don't do it right, you have to question the reliability of that evidence. This here is an example in which they took 2 opportunities to collect it, and it led to an error. The final thing, and this perhaps is the most problematic thing that arose from my perspective in this case, was that when the victim was contacted to come down for the final lineup, for the live lineup here, she was told beforehand that they had a suspect in the case, and that suspect may be participating in a live lineup, and if that suspect was going to participate in a live lineup, they would call her and ask her to come down. So she went in with the expectation that somebody was going to be in the lineup. Not only did she have the expectation that somebody was in the lineup, but she was also informed that this suspect wasn't arrested yet because she had failed to pick him out in the photo lineup. So she went in with the mindset that A, a suspect is there, and B, look for one of the people that I saw in the photo lineup. And it might be one of those obvious things to say, but we've done a lot of research in this area, about 30 years of research on the effects of instructions that you give to witnesses. And one thing that we know is that if the witness expects that somebody in the lineup is the suspect, they're going to pick somebody. They're much more likely to pick somebody. So we know that there's better procedures to do. Just giving the witness the simple instruction that, hey, the perpetrator may or may not be in this lineup decreases that expectation and leads to more accurate identifications. But these are things that we have to investigate to find out, A, why the errors occur, and then we start tweaking them. We start looking at them in the laboratory, doing real-world evaluations and trying to develop better techniques. We're currently working in the laboratory trying to develop better instructions that we can give to witnesses to try to enhance the quality of the evidence, the testimony or the identification that we get from them, and trying to constantly tweak it. But there's a variety of things that we can do in the law enforcement community that we can give to law enforcement investigators that are based upon psychological science and using science to understand why these errors occur and what we can do. And for time's sake, I'm going to skip over presenting more of those to you. But if you have questions, I'll gladly answer them after the forum if you have questions about what are some more of the reforms that we can possibly do.